Hi my little baguettes, today we're doing Passé Composé with être and I'll make you understand in such a way that you're going to be haunting Passé Composé's dreams. So today we're going to be doing Passé Composé avec être. In the previous video we covered what Passé Composé is and that there are two helping verbs that you can do it with. We've already covered the avoir part, so I would suggest you watch that first because it'll be easier to understand the next part, that is passé composé avec être. Now, how do we do it with this as your helping verb? First thing we need to understand is the formation, or what we call la formation. It is how you phrase your sentence, how you frame it, and you create a structure to make your statement in passé composé in the past tense. First thing we need is your subject, that is the person who is going to be doing your action. Then you need your verb, right? To describe an action in the past, you always need a verb. Now the thing here is that in passé composé, you will always need two verbs in your sentence. Okay. So the first verb is going to be your helping verb or the auxiliary verb, as I told you. And the second one is going to be your past participle or what we call the main verb. And then the rest of your sentence, which is your objet. Alright, now coming on to the helping verb, it can either be avoir or être, as we've discussed. Avoir portion is done. Now we come to être. Okay, for être, I told you that there are like a lot of verbs, right? We cannot count verbs. So for être, we have a specific list of verbs. Okay, there's a short list, not many verbs, like 15 to 16 verbs that are done exclusively with être. That means this list of verbs is only and only done with être. And all the remaining verbs are done with avoir. Now, this means this list is very important. Once you memorize this list, you'll know that, okay, fine, this is my list of verbs and these verbs are done with être. Anytime you see these verbs, you'll be like, okay, this has to be done with être, and all the remaining verbs, it will be done with avoir. Okay, simple thing, part of list means être, not part of list means avoir. Before we come to the list, we'll see how we conjugate être. Okay, how do we conjugate our helping verb? Now, être will be conjugated in your present tense according to your subject. Okay, according to the person who is doing the action, right? So we have many subjects. We have je, tu, il, elle, he, she, right? Nous, we, vous, you, and il, elle, pluriel, that is they. So for je, it becomes je suis. With tu, it becomes tu es. Il or elle, it becomes est, that is il, elle, est. Nous sommes, vous êtes, with a little accent, and with il, elle, it becomes sont. Now that we know how we conjugate our helping verb, and we also know how to make the choice, right? It's not like a coin toss, right? That you get, oh, heads is avoir and tails is être. It's not that simple. You have a choice. And how do you make this choice? Now we know. We make the choice based on the list. So now we come to the list of verbs that are done with être. Now what is the list? Now there's an easy way to memorize this list, right? So there are going to be a lot of verbs and we need to learn them, right? In order to know which verbs will be done with avoir and which are to be done with être. Okay, now there are two ways that you can learn them. One is the advent rule and the second one is your Dr. Mrs. Vandertramp. Okay, it sounds very complicated, but it's very simple. Okay, I'm not teaching you any formulas or rocket science of sort. Okay, it's going to be very simple. Okay, it's just a way to remember them. My personal favorite is advent rule. I'm going to teach you both, and then you can pick which one you want to memorize it with. Okay, both are super easy. It only depends which one you like more. Coming on to the advent rule. What is the advent rule? Okay, it's not a rule. It's just the letters advent, where each letter stands for a verb. Okay, it's basically an acronym. So the A stands for the verb arriver, that is to arrive or reach. The D stands for descendre, that is to go down or descend. Venir is from V. E is for entrer, to enter. N is for naître, to be born. And tomber is to fall. These are the verbs, and with advent rule we write the opposites. Once you know this and you know the meaning of these verbs, you can know their opposites, and it will be easier to memorize. Okay, this is my personal favorite. So the opposite of to arrive is to leave, right? That is partir. Then opposite of to go down is to go up or to climb. That is monter. Venir is to come, super easy. Opposite is to go, aller. We've seen it everywhere, aller. Entrer is to enter, sortir is to go out. Then naître is to be born, and the opposite is to die, which is mourir. Finally, the opposite of tomber is to fall, and it is rester, to stay. Okay, know that rester, a lot of students they get confused. They think rester means to rest, but no, rester means to stay in a place, right? For example, I stay at my grandparents' house, right? Je reste chez mes grands-parents. Then, same thing, Dr. Mrs. Vandertramp, it also does the same thing. Each letter, like the D, R, M, R, S, they all stand for a verb. Okay, same verbs, nothing different. Okay, so the D stands for descendre. The R stands for retourner. Then the M stands for monter. The R stands for revenir. The S stands for sortir. The V stands for venir. A for arriver. Naître. D for devenir. E for entrer. Another R. There are a lot of R's, okay, if you look at it. So another R is rester, to stay. T for tomber. Then the R is for rentrer. A is for aller. M is for mourir. And P is for partir. So we have a total of 16 verbs. So you need to know that whenever you see one of these 16 verbs, all 16 are conjugated only with être. Okay? You have to memorize this list, and whenever you see these verbs, it means it will be done with être. There is no other helping verb. And as long as it's not these verbs, it will be done with avoir. So the next topic that we're going to be doing is accordance. Now accordance is extremely important, alright, and this is where people lose a lot of marks because they don't understand where to do it, how to do it, and how exactly you understand what accordance is. Now first thing you need to know about it is that it is only and only done with être. Now, what does it mean it's only and only done with être? You remember I told you there's a list of verbs, list of 16 verbs that are done with être. Okay, so whenever you see these verbs, you know you have to conjugate it with être as your helping verb. So for these sentences, we do accordance. That means accordance will never be done with avoir. Okay, we do not do accordance with past participles or verbs conjugated with avoir. This is only limited to être. Now, what is it? How do we do it? We come to that now. For that, I'll give you the formation once more. Subject plus être plus past participle plus your object or your rest of the sentence. Okay. Now, how do we do accordance? Accordance is done on the past participle. That means what are we changing? The past participle is changing. Changes are being made to the past participle. Okay, we are modifying or changing the past participle. Now, how are we changing? In what basis are we changing it? We can't just randomly change it, right? There needs to be a reason, there needs to be a how, there needs to be a why. Now, it depends on the subject. How does it depend on the subject? Now, the word itself, accordance, tells you what we're doing. We're according. According to what? According to the subject. Okay? So, we change the past participle according to number and or gender of the subject, as in the person who is doing the work, right? Now, what does the number and gender of the subject mean? It is the person who is doing the work, their gender, their number. Number as in whether is it a singular person, singulier, right? Or is it a plural person, that is pluriel. And gender means is it masculine or is it feminine? For instance, if I talk about L, L is a person, she is feminine and she is singular, only one she, right? Now if I talk about nous, nous is us, it is plural. Now it can be masculine or it can be feminine, right? But what is important is that it's plural. If I talk about je, that is I, it depends on the person. I can be masculine, I can be feminine. But one thing is that I will also always be singular. For tu, again, it can be a female, it can be male, but it will always be singular. Il, now il will always be masculine, il will always be singular. Same way, L will always be feminine, L will always be singular. Then nu we've covered, vu. Vu can either be a singular person, right? That is aap, like respect we're giving, right? Or it can be you all, right? More than one you. So it can be masculine, it can be feminine, depends. Okay, it can be singular, it can be plural, depends. Okay, then coming on to ILS, that is il pluriel. This is masculine plural. L, that is, for example, maybe three girls are there, right? So it will be they feminine. This will be feminine plural, that is confirmed. Now, this is what I mean when I say the gender and number of the subject. Okay, why do we need to know this? We need to know this because we're changing the past participle according to your subject. That is accordance. This is what we call accordance. Now we know what we're changing the past participle. According to what we're changing it according to the number and the gender of the subject. Now we know what we're doing, but what are we doing? Right? The question is, what changes are we making? So, if your subject is masculine and singular, your verb will remain as it is. That means no change. If your verb is feminine and singular, you'll add an E to the verb at the end. Okay? If your verb is masculine and plural, you'll add an S for plural. Now, if your verb is feminine and plural, you will add an E for the feminine and you will add an S for the plural. Now this is extremely important because some students, they'll conjugate perfectly fine, they'll conjugate the past participle, they'll pick the right helping verb, right? But what they miss is that they forget to do accordance. This needs to be in your mind that if you're conjugating a verb with être, accordance has to be there because marks are awarded for it. And another thing that you need to know is that some people do accordance with avoir. Okay, you never do accordance with avoir in Passé Composé. So these changes are made to the past participle according to your subject. Alright, now let's try understanding this through an exercise. Before you attempt any exercise on Passé Composé, you need to make a note in your mind. First thing is that there will always be two verbs in the blank. Second thing is that you need to conjugate the past participle. Okay, when I say two verbs, you need to make a choice between avoir and être when you're doing passé composé. Okay, once you make the choice, then you have to conjugate your past participle. Okay, and the third thing that you need to do that is only related to être is that you do accordance of the past participle. So here now, how do I fill in the blank? First thing I'm going to see is the verb given to me in the bracket. All the verbs that are given to you in the bracket will be in infinitive form and you're supposed to conjugate it by choosing a helping verb. Now this helping verb, as I already said, can either be avoir or it can be être. Fine. Now here, this exercise is completely based on être. So here, aller is part of Dr. Mrs. Vandertramp. And we're going to conjugate it. That means we'll do it with être. So now I have to conjugate my first verb, that is my helping verb. I've decided it's être. L becomes est. La. Now comes the past participle. How do I conjugate aller? For the past participle, I remove the R. I add an accent on the E. Why? Because it's an ER verb and those are the two steps to make a past participle out of it. Now, another thing, that is the last step, which is exclusive to être. That means you will not do it with avoir, you only do it with être. This is an extra step for être related passé composé. Now, your subject here is elle. You have to see your subject if you're doing it with être. Your subject is elle, that means she, feminine, and it is only one person, right? She, one girl maybe. So, féminin singulière. And what is the rule of accordance for that? Is that if your subject is feminine singulier, you add an E to your past participle. That is what we call accordance. I'll add an E here. Because if you do not put this E here, you will lose marks. This E is extremely important. Accordance is your last step that you need to do in order to complete your answer. Next sentence, you see the verb revenir, part of Dr. Mrs. Vandertramp. That means my first verb will be être. I will conjugate it according to my subject, il. That makes it sont. Ils sont. Now, revenir is an exception, as I said. So, revenir becomes revenu. Now, I have to see what is the gender number of my subject. Why? Because I'm doing it with être. That means accordance needs to be done. So, il, it's masculine and it's plural. What is accordance is? What change will I do to my past participle? If it's masculine pluriel, I'll add an S to my conjugation. That means revenu with an S over here. It becomes ils sont revenus. This S is very important to get full marks. Now, third sentence, tu. Again, this one is important. When we talk about subjects like je and tu, we do not know the gender of the person who's speaking. It can be masculine, it can be feminine. So we assume it to be masculine to simplify it for us. The other thing that we know is that je and tu are obviously singular. We're talking about one person. So we take it as masculine singular. Unless if I'm speaking, for example, I'm a girl. So when I say je, I will put an extra E when I'm personally speaking. But if I'm doing an exercise, no need to do that. Doesn't matter if you're a guy, if you're a girl, that is irrelevant, right? We assume it to be masculine to simplify our business, right? We don't want to complicate anything. If it's je, if it's tu, you don't have to be like, oh wait, is it masculine or is it feminine? We assume it to be masculine. We don't have to add anything. Okay, why? Because it's singular and it's masculine, and for masculine singular, no change, leave it as it is. So here, reste, part of Dr. Mrs. Vandertramp, that means tu a. And reste, er verb, I remove the r, I add an accent on the e. Now the final one, this again very important, here a name is given, Gauri, right? Now when a name is given, you have to pay attention. If it's a masculine name, or if it's a feminine name, because if it's a feminine name, you have to add an E because the subject is feminine. The person who is doing the action is feminine. For example, here Gauri. Gauri is feminine singular, one girl, right? Name of a person, me, right? Then if we have, for example, two people's name, right? Rahul and Paul. Now you know both are masculine, but two people means plural. That means I'll have to add an S to my past participle. Now if I say Nancy and Gauri. That makes it both are girls and feminine plural. I'll have to add an E for being a girl and S for being two girls. Now if I say Nancy and Rahul, okay, this is assumed to be ILS, they. Okay, so we take it as just plural and we add an S. Here it is Gauri. And Ahive is Dr. Mrs. Vandertramp. So Gauri is she. That is L. So with L, être becomes LA. And Ahive, normal ER verb, I remove the R, I add an accent on my E. Now another step is accordance. For L, feminine singulier, I will add an A to my verb. That is, Elle est arrivée à Lyon. Now, if it was Rahul and Paul, right? If I had to conjugate arrive with Rahul and Paul, it is il. ILS is my subject. So it would become Rahul et Paul. I'll write it over here. Sont, and my verb is arriver. Sont arrivés, and I add a S here for being plural. Now, if my sentence was Nancy and Gauri, it is L, pluriel. So again, sont will be my helping verb, and arriver, I will add an extra E for being feminine and S for being plural. Now for Nancy and Rahul, because it's male and female together, so we take it to be ILS. Okay, when there's a group of people mixed gender, we also take ILS, same thing. So here I'll write sont arrivés. We assume it to be just plural, so we add the s for plural, we don't add the a. So this is how we do accordance with être, and this is how passé composé is done.